many people seem to be taking solace or hoping that electricity from the distribution companies will continue to stay the way they are. The moment that uh, idea of band A, band B, band C was thrown up, I knew that the big scam was coming in that area. The regulation is obvious. So that idea of turning something that should have been a steady supply of electricity, there's been a failure over the years to make it steady. You now use that as a value, so if we increase you to 16 hours, then in a different band. If we give you up to 18 hours, then a different band. If we give up to 20 hours, then a different band. That's, for me, is just, playing, light with important matters, because eventually all forms of subsidy will be removed and we'll have to face our reality. Just last week, there was a publication about, some 60 something billion paid as subsidy by the government in 1 month. If that continues, before long, the burden of energy will be completely transferred. So not just the petrol and diesel we're dealing with now, but we will need to start thinking about all kinds of energy. And why we spend time talking about energy, because it's the biggest, makes the highest impact on our pockets, our operations, we need energy, and so we need to spend a lot of time talking about it. But what has happened over the years is that most individuals and companies have made the mistake of thinking that the first step towards energy sustainability is to switch from fossil fuel to renewable energy. So they go install solar. Now, we don't need to start highlighting how much more expensive solar is, compared to fossil fuel. But if you were burning fossil fuel and much of it was being wasted because you didn't have a proper energy audit, you didn't have a energy intelligence, you didn't have an energy management system that monitors every circuit in your facility, right? And you want to move to sustainability and you go straight to acquire solar at a very high cost, compared to how much energy you can get out of it every day. Then you have now used an expensive solution, though more sustainable, to fund a wastage in your system, which is unsustainable. So it's a net zero effect. If you do not audit your systems, identify where energy is being used, and revamp, clean up, remove all wastage, so that the energy you are actually now using is exactly what you need. Nothing is being wasted, and nothing is being used for things that are not bringing value. You don't have that level of intelligence. And when you move to solar and you now, invest heavily in that acquisition, then you would have done something good for yourself, because it's now clean energy coming to feed your need for your energy consumption. So, in essence, start with energy efficiency, and that starts with basic metering, sub-metering, energy management system, Internet of Things sensors, smart technologies that gives you insights on how energy is being consumed at a micro or circuit level. So that's about energy. So now let's talk about water. We probably would think that water is not such a big deal. After it's been raining all day, right? Rained all night, rained all day. So that's surplus water. Think about it. Do we really use the water that comes from the rain? How many people actually collect those water and filter it and use? Even in areas where, when they drill boreholes, the kind of water they get out of it is laden with iron and other hard metals. They still don't even think about systems for collecting rainwater. Well, you can't blame them. Many people will say the rainwater has a lot of carbon deposits, a lot of soot, a lot of environmental impurities that are, coming with water. But these are things that you can easily, just with filtration, take out of the water, compared to having to drill water, bring out those ones that are brownish and smelly, aerate them, sedimentation, flocculation, chemical dosing, filtration, And some people will even go and add an osmosis treatment plant at the end. So you have a very expensive process of generating water. You know the worst part of that? You know the worst part of that? After we have gone through all that expensive process to get the water processed and ready for use, we use that expensive water that we didn't even take time to calculate how much a liter now costs, right? So if you drill a well and you put a pump in there, apart from the fact that you need to pay to the government for drilling water, with your own well, which many people are not paying. So you don't probably didn't know that there's able to be a license for drilling that water. The energy that pumps the water out, that energy itself is a cost. That if you calculate it by every cubic meter of water that you pump out, plus the equipment that pumps it out, you actually know how much raw production is per cubic meter. If that water passes through one system to the next system, manpower, chemicals, equipment to filter and change of candles for osmosis treatment plants, and that water gets into a tank where you now want to use it, you now need to calculate how much extra has been added to its value per cubic meter, right? And that is supposed to help you first, because we're talking about triple bottom line, right? Something has to be environmentally smart, focus on the planet, economically smart, focus on profit, and socially smart, focus on the people, right? In this particular case, if you do that analysis, you ask yourself, is it smart for me to spend this much on a cubic meter of water? Because if you've not done the maths, if you've not done those calculations, you don't know how much it costs you. You just think that these are all expenses that you don't have a choice, you have to bear, right? Compare that to if you had to actually go and buy the water, right? Because it's possible to have other people who have processed water, probably got lucky to have better water from the ground, just filtration or whatever. They just bring water and split for you. How much does that cubic meter cost compared to the cost of yours truly process of transforming your water to make it potable? So that comparison has to be done so that you go for the best option. And we have seen situations, even in Lagos here, where people build a house, do the borehole, it didn't work, look at the cost of treatment. And you know what? They did this analysis and they said, tankers supply water every week. And that's what they're living with. Tankers supplying them water has become cheaper by far than any effort they can spend trying to make the water they get from their ground useful. Okay, so think about how you acquire the water. Then the final part, which is, I feel this is where the tragedy really is. You now know the cost. You now know see all of these inputs that goes into that processing of the water. And then you use the water for all purposes. You wash the cars, you wash the toilets, you water the gardens, you wash your drains, you all kinds of things with water that have gone through all that process. Do you really need all of that before you can use the water to wash your car, for example? Let me even give you another thing that sometimes I don't get it when it comes to sustainability around water. Some people have the most expensive water treatment plants in their facility. World Health Organization standard water is being produced. You know what they do? They don't trust it. They still go and buy dispenser water or bottled water or sachet water for that matter. Is it not ridiculous? But that's the reality. Why do you invest so much? Maybe because you're not really counting the cost of a cubic meter, how much it costs to bring out that cubic meter of water. Because you're not metering the water, you don't even know how much water you're consuming. Water sustainability also requires that you have a way to know how much water in volume each person is consuming per day. So if a family fills a 1,000 liter tank, and every day they have to fill that 1,000 liter tank, count how many people are in that family, and divide the 1,000 by the number of people and say this is how many liters each person is consuming. But we don't seem to focus on the kind of data and analysis that helps to make sense of sustainability. That's where our problems start from. So let's go over the recommendation when it comes to water sustainability again. One, understand how water is being used. Start with how water is being produced. Energy that goes into it, efforts for treating it, efforts for pumping and circulating it, every effort that goes into it, have a quantification of all the inputs, their costs, and then have a metering system that records how much that water is taking. Because again, the reason you are calculating the cost and the quantities being produced, so you can have a cost per cubic meter or a cost per unit of water produced, right? And then step two, look into how the water that is being processed is being used, right? Part of that production process, you've already considered whether it's best to produce your own water or to buy water, right? So we'll move from there. Step two, ask yourself if the water produced is being used judiciously. Are you wasting water that is now very expensive because you know the cost now? Are you using water that is too clean for certain purposes because there's no need to make it too clean to do certain things, right? Can you have a dual line to process water very deeply for this purpose and then leave it lightly processed, like safely filtered for another purpose? Can you run that kind of line in your facility? So think about that. And then finally, when the water is finally in the finally being used, ask yourself, why do you put all that investment in water production and treatment, and then go and buy the one you don't even know how they process it, right? Sometimes you buy a bottled water or you buy a sachet water, dispenser water. You just know that somebody on the street is selling it in the shop. You don't know how that water got into these containers. You just trust it, you know. So that's the problem. So measuring, metering, deciding on, technical aspects and operational aspects like I've discussed are very key. And finally, when your users use water in your facility, know what kind of water you are giving out. Whether you're a facility manager, you're a mother in the house, a father, or anybody, just know what kind of water you're giving out. Have a system of just taking samples of the water to go and test every now and then. We recommend quarterly for commercial and office environment. For residential environment, you do it once a year, it's also okay because at the end of the day, you just want to, if nothing major happens to your treatment system or your borehole, once a year it's okay to just get a sense of what makes up the water that you are consuming and giving out to others in your facility. Finally, if you can capture rainwater, please capture it and use it. It's the cheapest source of water because gravity already brings it down. It's falling down on you. All you need to do is just put some means of capturing it. When I was in school in Edo State those days, I mean, borehole was a luxury because it was so deep and so rocky to get drilling and get water. So it depends on the public utilities, and if you don't get that, you depend on water coming from the rain those days. And we almost every house had gutters run around it for collecting rainwater, collected, allowed to settle in some concrete tanks underground, and then we just go get water that we need. And sometimes all year through, you have more than enough water to use for the household. So rainwater is very powerful source, if you want to go that route. But again, think about how water comes from that whole production and use process into becoming waste, the sewage and all of that. For some places, sewage is actually metered, right? So if you waste the water, maybe your pipe is broken and water is draining into your drainage, or some toilet is not working well and just continuously dripping, or something is making people just to use water recklessly and in a way that is not sustainable. Don't forget that you also have the burden of that water turning into sewage that you are also responsible for. So even if you're not metering your sewage line, think about the cost of using a tanker to go and evacuate and take it to a processing plant regularly, or having a processing plant yourself where you run the sewage through it using energy and chemicals and all the other methods that are available to turn that into safe water to put out. So you waste the water, you have the burden in the sewage department. Okay, let's talk about waste itself, solid waste now, what we call the refuse. Uh, do you know how much refuse you generate? Do you know? So that's basic. How much of it do you generate? How do you practically have a? Do you practically have a way of measuring what you're generating? I want to give you this simple trick. It's a waste consignment program where you have a log, and every waste coming out of your facility is bagged. And in your waste receptacle or waste refuse bay area, you have a weigh bridge, some kind of hanger where there is this suspended scale. Those ones used to weigh bags of produce in a Greek. Just before any waste bag is thrown into that bin. Somebody hangs it up there and records the weight and throws it. Somebody comes, hangs it up and records the weight. So if the cleaners and gardeners, everybody do that on a regular basis, over time you don't know exactly how much waste you are collecting. If you didn't do that, at least understand the volume of your bin. So every time the bin is full, you record, oh, this is 240-liter bin that we just filled up, and then you record that. And so it's either in kilograms or in liter volume. Bottom line is first know how much of it. Then beyond that, what type of waste are you generating? If I were to look at your facility today, I can't really guess what kind of waste that is prominent in your facility. So think about having simple segregation program. I don't recommend starting with putting bins everywhere in the offices and hoping that people will put the right refuse in the right bin. Whatever. I don't go that route. I'll start by working from the areas of my influence where I have control. I'm the FM. I'm in charge of the waste bin. Nobody from the building comes to see what's happening with me at the waste bin. So I can start by doing segregation. And segregation doesn't mean I'll do so many parts. Yeah, those guys that simply just come and pick out plastics, for example. Allow them pick out those plastics, but before they take it out, you're not billing them for it at this point. You don't even know, how much is going to come out of it. But at least for a start, they can sort through your refuse, take out the plastic, but make sure they weigh it and record the weight consignment volume of weight of that plastic you've removed. So that if you have 10 tons overall from all your waste and 1.5 tons were removed that were recycled, you created one metric. I was able to save 15% of my waste from going into the landfills. That is a beginning point. All happening at the back end, no front end efforts. It's when I now become advanced, my people now become more sophisticated, more highly oriented on how to participate in sustainability and see the advantage of it. That's when I will now say, okay, let's now put color bins on the corridors and places where we'll tell everybody when you see a green bin, this is what you put into a green bin. When you put a blue bin, where you put a blue bin, and so on and so forth. That way, I'm taking it in, right? But a low-hanging fruit, if I can deal with it from behind. Over time, I can move up to the point where I begin to rake in revenue from my waste. If you manage a bank, if you manage a commercial building, for example, right now, there's so much that can come out of shredded paper. There's so much that can come out of cans and tins and plastics that you can actually start making money off, because there are recycling companies that can come in, take all of this. And the good thing about it is that they are ready to work out a program with you once you're able to give them your preliminary analysis of your numbers. Because what they don't want to do is put manpower and effort in helping you to segregate or manage your refuse when at the end of the day it's not commercially viable in terms of quantities, right? So you'd have used your waste consignment approach to package the data that you can use to invite them and say, look, I generate 10 tons of waste every week, so you better take me seriously. They'll come to give you the support, because at the end of the day, they know that after that 10 tons, if it's just 1 ton that is plastic, 10% that's plastic, maybe another 1.5 or 2 tons that is paper from an office complex. That's a huge, turnover in terms of production capacity for them, and they'll be very happy to participate with you on it. The other aspect of waste that we have to be very conscious of is the issue of toxic waste. So much of what we generate are not meant to go into landfill. A lot of people pick out light bulbs, energy-saving light bulbs that contain mercury, flash it right in the bin, change their oil from central generators, and then just empty it in the drainage. Sometimes you have batteries, whether the small ones or the big ones, you just throw them in the bin. All kinds of things that are not supposed to be in the bin are going into the bin. As facility managers, we need to be wiser. We need to be more concerned about the environment. Let's train our staff on how to handle waste intelligently and not be polluters at that level. In the long run, summary of waste, ensure that you know how much it generates, uh, ensure that you over time progress towards being able to segregate so that you can know how much of that total waste can be recycled, even as a low-hanging fruit, get a sense of how much of that waste, which of that of waste that you generate that can be reused or recycled. And then over time, as you progress through that track, move everybody in the organization to understand the importance of waste reduction. So it's not just enough to be able to recycle some of the waste with all the effort that go into that. We also don't want things becoming wasted, right? So we don't want to buy things that have excessive packaging. We don't want to buy things that we use only one small part and throw away the rest. We just want to have that mindset that when we are trying to buy, acquire anything, let's be conscious of not just what we are trying to get, but also what comes with it. Everything that comes with it, how useful are they, right? If we can avoid taking on things that we will not be able to use, uh, all the better. In one of my procurement efforts, early days when I was still in the field, was safety shoes for FNs and technicians, and every time these shoes come, they come in large packaging and all kinds of stuff. So, and I'm sure with the suppliers, can you bring them, out of their cartons and use the cartons for other buyers and see if we can get some discount on it. Initially, he said, oh, there can't be any discounts. But when he saw the numbers that we're buying, I realized that, what, we can give you some discount. And it was good for both parties, right? So always think through to that point. If this is coming, I will have to be left with, how to dispose of it. And we seem to be benefiting from one flat rate disposal price, right now. It's almost like communism when it comes to waste disposal. Every house pays, every family pays 5,000 naira a month or 10,000 naira a month. And so because of that, you're not conscious of, how much waste you're generating. If people have to weigh your waste, or count it or use volume to measure it, and then you pay according to how you weight. I'm sure that intelligence will come back. So, but we need to start building that intelligence right now, not wait until that time when the bills will what is forcing us, like what the bills are doing to us in energy now. Because it's not happening to us in water and waste, we still, mostly are reckless about it. But as facility managers, the way you can add value to your organization is to start now to think about how you can measure, map out strategies for cutting down and reducing waste. The next thing is about your green building certification. So you don't know if your facility will qualify for any green building certification until you actually carry out an audit. Okay, so whether you are thinking LEED, BREEAM, IFC Edge, or any other certification like Green Star, WELL, and the rest that are available globally, the first thing is to start having data. You cannot start talking about green building certification if the basic data on all of sustainability metrics you don't have. Your energy use, not no detailed data, water use, no data, material use, no data, waste, no data. That's where it starts from, So see those data that will now be used to benchmark the threshold set by this green building certification. So start by conducting an initial sustainability assessment of the facility, which is more like an audit, a questionnaire-based approach where you find out, how you are doing regarding different aspects of sustainability. Identify areas for improvement in energy, water, and waste. These are the three key areas. Okay, and then implement green technology and sustainable practices in these areas. If for energy, you want to reduce total energy use per energy driver. You want to reduce the energy consumption from unsustainable sources like fossil fuel and increase the one from renewable sources. For water use, you want to cut it down. You want to remove wastage from water use. And then for waste management, you want to cut down and you want to segregate, reuse, and recycle. So set goals in these areas and ensure that you are keeping tabs of how you're making progress in those areas. And once you've started making those progress, look for consultants and professionals who could do proper audits, sign the audit documents, and put you on the path to green building certification. And they're very helpful because they help first you reduce operational costs, energy and water savings. Your property value will go up. Even the rent you can charge per square meter of flat or apartment will go up if your building is certified to green building status. Most countries in this Western world will charge rent based on how a building. Okay, so we're talking about system thinking now. How do I get better at uh, improving those metrics, water, energy, waste, for example? It starts from how I acquire the things I acquire, which is the inputs. I need to start prioritizing sustainability, low environmental impact, materials that come from recycled, biodegradable materials in my procurement. So anytime I want to buy something, write it into procurement policy that there should be questions about how the supplier and the supplier have already imbibed or applied some sustainability considerations. Because at the end of the day, it's you that bears the ultimate responsibility for acquiring anything. Because from when it hits once it's delivered to you, whether it's an equipment, whether it's food or a new building or whatever it is, once it gets to you, you become responsible for it. Now you're responsible for it up to the point where you finally get rid of it, but you are also accountable for it for how it was produced. If it was produced using an unsustainable approach before it came to you, you are also going to be accountable for all the effort that went into it. For example, you want to buy, a particular equipment or a source in a service or material, and you had the option of getting the one that was made in maybe Badon or Benin, for example, versus the one that was made in China, right? You ask yourself questions like, how were they made? How was the energy and water and the sustainability principles imbibed by manufacturers wherever they were made? That's first consideration. Second one is how long did it travel, right? So from Benin or Ibadan is probably less than 200 miles, and from China it's probably 9,000 or 10,000 miles. So you ask yourself, do I want to be accountable for the fuel that was burned to bring it all the way for 10,000 miles compared to the one that was brought in from 200 miles? Some of us will make decisions purely based on how much it's costing when it lands on my doorstep. But the moment you begin to understand your carbon footprint and the life cycle analysis and impacts of your decision, you become smarter in making those decisions because you are talking triple bottom line: social impact, environmental impact, and economic impact. So one decision is how cheaply can I get it, but then there are other decisions you need to make before you can say you're sustainable at the middle point. We must think about the impact on people as well as the impact on the environment. So if we talk about energy and water and waste, for example, talk about the environment. What about the people that did it? Are they using child labor, for example? Are they using slavery to produce it to make sure it's cheap for you? Those are all negative human impact. If there's anything that's coming to you after going through negative human impact, you have to ask yourself, do I want to have that on my conscience? Because that's the whole idea of sustainability. We want to develop ourselves, we want to get the best results out of our world, but we also want to make sure that the future generations that are coming have a way to enjoy the things we're enjoying today. So that's the whole idea of sustainability. So we don't want to have that on our conscience. We don't want to have that negative outcomes on us. Of course, we're talking about how to make a better world for today and for the future. Now, let's talk about you know the spaces we provide our facility managers. If people use their spaces and they are uncomfortable and they feel unwell and they are unable to be productive or they have injuries, any kind of negative impact or effects, who should feel responsible for that? Of course, it's the facility manager, because you have a duty of care to make sure everybody is cared for in your facility. And you also have liability, professional liability for illnesses and injuries that occur in the workplace that you are managing. But for many organizations and for many facility managers, it's almost like a far, I don't know how to put it, something that is way out of reach, because they are basically thinking about the make sure the building is working, the power is on, make sure that different systems are running and blah blah blah. But we cannot make the building to be functioning at the expense of the users of the building. So things like humidity that affect spores and create allow algae to build up in our spaces, create medical issues for the lungs. Think about that. Talk about volatile organic compounds, things from your plastics, your aerosols, from carpets, from all kinds of chemicals that come into the spaces like paints and glues. They affect the human body. Think about that. Oxygen deficiency when places are not well ventilated. Think about dust particles. Think about impurities that are inhaling all of these pollutants, humidity, and poor indoor environments can be a big problem for us as operators and managers. And so we need to, in the spirit of sustainability, be conscious about the impact on the people that we are serving, by making sure we focus on indoor environmental quality. It's something that goes beyond just providing air conditioning and lighting and so on and so forth. It has to do with the well-being. You know that one of the main purpose of facility management is to improve the quality of life of people and the productivity of the core business. So that's why we need to ensure that the environment is lighted adequately, the temperature is right, pollutants are not in the spaces. We ensure the place is clean always, fresh air is brought in, and then there's access to oxygen. Some spaces are so locked up that the oxygen gets used up excessively. And then there are technologies now for improving sustainability. We talked about data. You need to have data. You need to be able to measure. You need to be able to count. You need to be able to record how things are happening within your facility. So now technology is here to take care of all of that. Instead of counting people as they come in and go, you can put counters on the door. It does the counting of in and out of people. You can use asset tags to connect assets and even locate people in ID cards in the spaces that they are, to know how many people are in the building. You can use sensors now to know how much oxygen or CO2 or impurities, even humidity sensors, light sensors to know how bright or how dim or how healthy a space is for your users. All kinds of sensors now exist. So there's no excuse now for not having the right technology, because the technologies are now also becoming cheaper. You know, times past we will have to invest in some expensive building management system wired up across all the building and having one terminal where we see all that information. But now you can have sensors, installed even in old buildings that already have old systems. You can all have non-intrusive or even wired in or wireless solutions now that come at $5, $10, $20 solutions you can put here and there, and you have all this data in your fingertips. Okay, and so when it comes to automation, you can start from the basic point of just knowing, right? So you put sensors that gives you how much energy is being used, sense whether there's somebody occupant in the space, uh, catch whether there's smoke or heat, uh, capture data on humidity, and so on and so forth. But then you cannot move beyond that to integrate controllers. So you can have a controller connected to a simple switch on and off device that you are familiar with. A controller can now be connected to it that is connected to the sensor. For example, I can have a large hall, a classroom or an event hall, and I want to, make sure that the air conditioners don't work, unnecessarily when there's nobody there. But someone who normally have to remember to go and put it off. But nowadays, people are almost too careless to even think about. Nobody's here who's leaving this air conditioning on, right? So a lot of energy is lost, money is lost in the process. So why don't I have a sensor, put up there in the ceiling that is just, basically noticing whether there's anybody in the space. Not necessarily motion sensor, but occupancy sensor. It knows, whether somebody is actually there, by feeling the person's body temperature. And then once it has that information, if there's a switch, a breaker or something that I've connected a controller to, that controller is an IoT-enabled controller that can receive signal from the sensor, and that controller does the switching, switch off when there is nobody in the space. You see how easy these things can be nowadays. It helps you to save energy. It helps you optimize the operational pressure of your facility. It removes all kinds of human error from the way you run your facility. So it just makes life easier for you. And then when it comes to gathering data, talk about metering. So put a meter here, put a meter there. Somebody has to go and read the meter and record it on a spreadsheet or a logbook. We can move beyond all that. With sensors in place, the data is being aggregated into a central dashboard so that we can take decisions, on energy use for different types of activities and different types of load consuming system, or data on how comfortable a space is, how safe a space is, just by looking at data from the sensors. So if somebody says, "Oh, this place is stuffy," for example, it may just be his perception or from wherever it's coming or the change of environment that's making it feel like that. But if I have sensors in place that help me know that, oh, oxygen level has depleted, CO2 level has gone up, humidity is up, and so there might be likely spots in the air, it becomes straightforward for me to take an action. Open the windows, let there be more ventilation into the space, put on the air conditioners to take out, the humidity in the space and so on. I can take all that action and no longer feel that somebody is, being paranoid for asking for any of these actions to be taken, because we now have objective data to make decisions on how to make that space useful. And in all of this, as you are transitioning from the basic awareness of sustainability, trying to appreciate sustainability, trying to put some ideas in place to get it right, to advance systems where you're going for, energy audits, you are doing smart building deployments, you are doing green building certification, from basic to complex, you need to have a set of data metrics that guides the entire process. First, you need to first know what your baseline data are, measure and know. And as you do any little effort, take for example, you change your lights to LED lights, right? Once you change your lights to LED light, there's always that did it yield the results? Did it give you anything useful, for what you have done? Um, can you show that changing the lights actually added value to your sustainability initiative? Okay. But the only way to know that is if you have metered the light breaker or fuse before you change out the lights. You now know the difference between what it was consuming before and what is consuming now. You cannot take that information to management and say, you know what, we achieved something with light. We want to start making our water because I mean, if you tell somebody you want to meter water, they probably, what's wrong with you? You know, what's the big deal about water? Why do you want to meter water? But I want to meter the water because uh, I want to take some initiatives to improve on the metrics. So these are my basic metrics, and these are what I can achieve if I actually meter it. And this was going to cost me when I for metering it. So you use that data to get approval to spend more, right? You celebrate milestones when you have achieved certain sustainability milestones, and they also become the base data that you use to apply for green building certifications when you want to. You can't go empty-handed and say, I want to become certified as a smart building or green building. You have to have data to show that you have been tracking from where you are to where you are going. All right, so that's our session for today. Technology practices, infrastructure management helps to regulate our operational activities, reduce our costs, increase or improve our efficiency, uh, improve the quality of life of people through indoor environment quality, from air quality to all the other consideration for comfort and convenience within our spaces. And then we can go from the basics to very advanced systems where we are shifting away from uh, unsustainable to more sustainable solutions, and having that reputation as an organization that supports the environment and supports people while making profit at the same time. All right. So questions? Let me see. If you raise your hand up, I can enable you to speak. All right, so feel free to join the conversation in our other on our groups. We have the facility management training WhatsApp group. We have the Telegram group, and we have the links for these groups dropped on the chat so that everyone can join. Yes, I think the WhatsApp group is there. Telegram group is there. Um, and then our YouTube page, our channel, very well loaded with content, like this and many more hours and hours of content that you can watch at your free time and take notes on things you can do better. Okay. So until I come your way again next week, I'll say stay tuned, stay connected, share the links to our social media pages, like and share, and bring as many people to the fold as possible.